right.
Hey, Tony, how you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good.
Awesome. Awesome.
Have we ever met?
We've never met in person.
Okay.
Yeah. I've just been, I've seen you a lot, the videos from the class and all that. So, but not in person
Probably a
or
little too much.
virtually. Yeah. No, you're good. It was fun actually.
That's cool. Yeah, it's really nice to meet you.
Yeah, finally. Excited as well.
So welcome, Tony Kipkemboi. Tony is a senior developer advocate, AI agents at CrewAI. CrewAI is a platform for building and deploying multi-agent AI systems that coordinate tasks using any LLM and cloud platform. Thanks for joining us, Tony.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, Brandon. Really appreciate the opportunity.
So let's start with the basics. I think it's the basics. What exactly are AI agents and how are multi-agent systems different from typical LLM apps?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question because I'm sure if you ask a bunch of people that are in the AI space about what AI agents is, you get different varying answers. But I think they all kind of conform at the basic level. I think for me, when I try to think of it and explain these days, I go back to the concept. So you have an LLM, which most people are familiar with. You give it a question, it gives you back answers. You also have tools, and these are like, think of them as primitives that form up the agent itself, just a basic agent. So you have the LLM, you have tools, and the tool could be just ability to access internet. So there's this popular API called Serper for basically being able to access the web through an API.
Hmm?
And on top of that too, so if you have an agent, now you have an LLM that can access data from the web and then do something with it. So that's a very basic agent. But now if you want to scale it up a little bit, another piece also is like basically an environment where it could do something. So that's, I guess you could sum that as the web as well.
Mhm.
So that's just a single agent. If you have multi-agent now, is basically having that same framework that I just explained, but you have a bunch of them. So maybe one of them does specific task, the other one does specific task. If you chain them together, they can do basically a lot of really awesome stuff. So you can have them, one of them could do the research, one of them could synthesize that research, another one could generate maybe graphs of that data or do some data analysis. And then finally, another one could generate like a final report that can actually, do something with it. And then maybe another one actually sends it to over email, Slack. So there's a lot of basically Legos that you can put together to build like a giant house or something of the sort.
So would you say it's like just one way of structuring an application, like providing an outline for the application, breaking it up by agent?
Yes, essentially, yes. So yeah, I think it's instead of thinking as just one monolithic agent, one monolithic app, you've kind of broken down the specific component into tasks. So if you have a workflow, for example, you want to break that down into like individual pieces that kind of comprise the whole thing. So like they say, you can't eat the whole elephant, you have to eat it chunks by chunks. I don't know where I heard that, but some analogy to that.
Something,
So
I don't know.
yeah, something like that. So it's essentially each piece kind of forms an agent and a task that agent has to accomplish in that sense. So I
Okay.
think you had asked also about, how is that different from just regular LLM apps, for example, that we see a lot. Uh, a good comparison to that maybe would be something like ChatGPT. That's a simple app, LLM app, for example. It's very one-dimensional in a sense that I tell it something and then it tells me back. It's just one-way communication. But the way you have to think about agents in that aspect now is you give it a task, like you give it a task. It has to run through like a very long sequence in a sense. It could be a very long sequence depending on how you want to define it.
Mhm.
And at the end, it gives you a full answer. And there's not really that in between a lot compared to just, I give it a prompt. Hey, what is the weather in this location? It goes the web searches and give me an answer. Boom, done. No, it doesn't really do a bunch of that. So more of like, uh, and this is on the multi-agent aspect of it. You give it one big task, it kind of decides itself as well. And there's autonomy in there where it decides,
Okay.
this is the task you want me to accomplish. You've
Yeah.
given me also tools to actually get this job done. Then they decides, okay, I need to go find this. I need to go find this. Does this kind of add to the point to what you're trying to achieve? And then it kind of does all that work for you and then gives you a final output at the end.
Okay, I think that makes sense. Um, so what is CrewAI and what makes it unique in the world of multi-agent systems?
Yeah. So with the same key in mind with the multi-agent framework. So right now, if you build your own from scratch, you probably are able to have this kind of one-on-one communication type with an app. But if you want to have this orchestration now, these agents, you want to chain them up together to do like one big task. You need some form of orchestration at the base layer. So CrewAI comes in there. And CrewAI is an open source Python framework that kind of allows you to orchestrate these agents together to perform any task that you want to do. And the cool thing about CrewAI as well is it's more of like a agnostic, more of like a foundational, very horizontal AI agent orchestration framework. So you've probably heard in the news, and people watching this probably have heard in the news. AI agents for finance, AI agent for lawyers. So those are like very vertical agents. So they do one thing specifically really good. But with CrewAI, you can actually build that LLM, that AI agent for lawyers, AI agent for farming, whatever. It allows you basically to build anything on top of it.
Okay.
And that's kind of the essence of CrewAI. The cool thing about CrewAI aspect as well is, and there's a lot of comparison with CrewAI with other open source frameworks as well, is it's very Pythonic. And I mean, you definitely do understand. I learned a lot of Python from you, but it's very Pythonic in a sense. So it's really easy to understand. Even the way we've abstracted kind of made the framework very modular. Somebody that doesn't even know how to program can collaborate with you and kind of define the agents and the tasks in a YAML file. It reads just plain English. So that's the simplicity of it. But you can also make it complex because we have flows, and that's like another layer of abstraction on top of that. Being able to chain now, if you have a group of agents that do specific thing, you can chain essentially crews together to do, think of a company structure. There's engineering, sales, marketing department. You can actually chain all of them together and have logics, where when engineering finishes building the product, pass it to marketing to create the marketing material to market the product, sales to sell that product, maybe HR to hire more people to build this product. So you can do a whole lot of orchestration between that, and kind of depending on what happens with this group. And that's even on a higher level. And then if you go all the way down, you can orchestrate at the level of the agent itself at the smallest level. Yeah.
Okay, so there's basically a crew is what? One or more agents working together. And then you're saying you can actually stitch the crews together as well and orchestrate those.
Yes, it's basically a tree going all the way down to the root. So
okay.
Yeah, so a crew essentially is formed by agents that you define, and then the tasks that those agents will do, and also the tools that each of these agents will use in a sense. Okay. And the way I like to usually describe to folks, like when they think about the agents themselves, is like with the analogy of departments of the company. So you have engineering, and I'm going to pick on engineering just because it's very adjacent to what I do.
Why not?
Yeah, so within engineering, you have different like people working in that department. So you have software engineers, data scientists, product managers, so many people working under engineering. So I like to think of those individual bodies as the agent itself. So the body is the agent. And then if you add a task, that's the job description of that person in that company. So the job description, they have KPIs, which is more like expected output that you expect from that agent. Mm-hmm. And those will form the tasks for that agent itself. And then the tools are more of like, each of those employees need like a laptop, access to a database, access to different people in the company have access to different things. And those are the tools that allows them to actually finish the job that they have been hired for. Mm-hmm. And so all of them in engineering, or all the people in engineering, all their tools, all their job description, they form a crew, and that's an entire crew now. So if you want to chain also on top of the crews with what I was mentioning with sales, marketing, you can actually orchestrate all of them. You can lay it up all the way you want.
That's a fantastic overview. That was great. Awesome. What are some of the most interesting use cases you're seeing with CrewAI right now?
Yeah, so we do have customers on the enterprise side. And so we have the open source version, which is still open source. We were built originally as an open source product. We still have the open source going. We have the enterprise now. So on the enterprise side, which is the more interesting part, because most people are like, well, I hear a lot about agents, but who's really using it? Like, what are some of the production use cases, right? And even when I go to conferences, a lot of people ask me, and these are like companies as well. They're like, wait, what are other people using agents for? Because everybody's like, use cases, give me. So I think the big thing, what I'm seeing right now, there's some, it's really a wide variety, from companies like PwC, the Pricewater, I can't say the full name, but PwC, I think that's PricewaterhouseCoopers. Yeah, I think that's what they are. Who they are. Yeah, the big consulting company in the world. And they're using it for coding specifically. So they're able to transform code from one type of code to another different type of code. And they've personally seen about, 70% improvement in just that entire workflow process that, once they integrated the agents. And we do even have some consumer packaging goods companies, one of the leading ones in the country, in the world, that actually use that for automating couponing process for their clients. So there's so many use cases out there that companies actually have it in production today, not even just toy projects, in production. And then there's so many of them that have it in just POC at the moment as well.
Okay. So you're a senior developer advocate for AI agents at CrewAI. What does that role entail? What does your day-to-day look like?
Oof, that's it's very kind of broad in a sense, and I think that's by design as well.
Yeah.
So if we go down to just kind of not even starting by what my day would look like, but just the overall gist of the role itself. So I kind of fall in as a bridge between developers and also our product team. So being the bridge to kind of pass communication back and forth both directions.
Mhm.
And the goal of it is really to help developers kind of succeed at building these agents using CrewAI at the moment.
Mhm.
And then, one day I could be writing, code examples, tutorials, recording videos, maybe at conferences, giving talks about AI agents. And then there's also just kind of maintaining our documentation, making sure that the developer experience is as smooth as possible. So those are kind of like the big overarching goals of my role.
What team are you on? Are you on a specific team?
It is always the trick, right? So the companies usually have bucketed DevRel under marketing because we do
Okay.
a lot of stuff with being the face of the company in a sense.
Right.
But also the person that kind of is in DevRel needs to also be technical. So you need to be able to build this demos. You need to also be able to explain what your tool does, your software does. So I at the moment I kind of fall between engineering. We don't have an actual marketing team. So more of like go to market and engineering, but more on the engineering side if I was to pick.
Okay. That makes sense. What's the biggest mindset shift developers need to make when moving from prompt-driven tools to agent-based architectures?
Yeah, I think the biggest one that I'm seeing really is thinking in terms of like more agents equals just to better
Okay.
anything. Yeah, so that is usually not true in all cases. So what I see is more like, hey, I put these agents together. They're just supposed to do something for me, and I expect that to do, I expect them to do something because it's more like what I get from a lot of people is like it's just like a plug and play super intelligence.
Yeah.
It's not really that. At the end of the day, they still need a lot of guidance and tuning under the hood because if you're chaining together multi agents to do specific thing, you need to think more clearly even at the prompt level. Like, what are you prompting on the agent? What is their role? What is their description? What exactly are they supposed to do? If you're not so clear about that, then it's just going to take you in circles as well and kind of really cost you a lot of tokens to optimize the entire
Right.
tool to do what it does. And most people get frustrated when they're like, oh, I built this agent with this, it did this, but I didn't like it because it didn't do this. But if you look at it, really, it's like you missed the most fundamental concept, really, is like tuning down to the prompt. What are you actually setting up? Do you understand the full process, or did you just cobble stuff up together and expect it to magically figure it out for you? You actually have to, like, at this point in stage where we are with agent development, is really you have to be very tuned with what are you actually putting together? What is this crew? It's basically just same analogy. You can't just hire a bunch of people and expect them to do, good
Right.
stuff. Like you have to be very intentional with how you do that.
So what's your process for coming up with projects or demos to build to release to the public? For example, you have a video you recently released about automating your Gmail inbox using AI agents. Was that just an idea you had and you did it, or was there a strategy behind it?
Yeah, that's one of those, just woke up, thought this was a good idea, build it, get it
Okay.
out. We don't have, I mean, since we're very small as a team, we're very small startup. I think we're just over 20, if anything. Um, I I just kind of come up with these ideas. I think it's great. People will enjoy, especially developers. And also it's very, relatable. It's something that is a
Okay.
problem that most people face.
Right.
We all have
Mhm.
Gmail as some accounts, and we just have a bunch of emails that we've never read. We don't think any of them are important,
Right.
but you're just like, let's just leave it there. So for me, I usually just look for the sweet spot between something that's kind of broadly useful for most folks and also relatable in a sense, and kind of showcasing a capability of the technology itself that I'm going to be using to kind of, fix that problem in a sense. So ideas usually for me comes from, personal pain points,
Sure.
essentially something like that,
Yeah.
and then also sometimes I get ideas from the community. Most people are like, hey, I'm trying to figure this out. And if a lot of people are kind of having that same thing, I'm like, okay, let me just build a demo to kind of demonstrate how to do that in a sense and kind of layer it on top with a good story and just kind of put it out there and then kind of solves a whole bunch of problems at the same time. Another good source of inspiration for me is always podcasts like this one. I figure out maybe the guest or the host identifies the problem they have, and I'm like, oh, I could build something with that. go ahead and build it and put it
Okay.
out there. So those are some of where I kind of generate some ideas as well.
That's great. I need to run your application against my Gmail inbox.
There you go. Yeah.
That's a good example. So let's say you woke up one morning and that was an idea you had. How did you move from the idea to an agent-based system? How did you decide how to break it up into different agents? Was that just intuitive? Like you've been doing this for a while, so you knew? Was it obvious? I don't know how many agents are in that application.
Yeah. I think at the moment I kind of suffer from doing it too much, so it kind of feels intuitive.
Huh?
But I think a good framework that maybe I could share with folks when I think about this. So I start with the idea, right? So I got that idea, for example, the Gmail automation. I'm like, oh, my Gmail is bothering me. I probably could use agents to clean this up instead of me going through each one of them individually.
Right.
Then I figure out, okay, that's an idea. Now I need to prototype it. So I usually first start with just kind of the main idea. I'm like, okay, this is the problem. I need to kind of find agents to build it. So what I usually start with is kind of looking at the whole problem as a whole.
Yeah.
Probably I need to go to my email. If I was doing this as a human, I kind of walk through it. I would open my Gmail, go in there, look through the first one, click on it. Yeah, maybe it's just a promotional email. I don't care for it. Delete it. Yeah, delete it. This one is somebody's asking me for collaboration. I'm like, oh, this is actually interesting. Maybe start and generate a draft or respond to it immediately, or just kind of like start and put it in a sudden label so that I can go back later and kind of maybe it's a collaboration sponsorship label, and then I'll go back to it later. So I kind of figure out those steps and figure out what emails in that inbox essentially that I'm like, okay, these are important to me. These are not important. And then after I figure that out, then I design an agent. One of them will just kind of grab all the emails, or I don't even need to use an agent for that. So I just use a regular function with IMAP, for example, grab all the unread emails or specific number of them. And then I have an agent that kind of goes through each of those emails and does that classification. Is this an important email? Is it high priority, low priority, medium priority? Do that classification. And then maybe the next agent now identifies and puts like stars, labels, depending on what it is. Another one generates drafts for draft responses for the ones that I figured, okay, these are important. Generate drafts for this. So it already has a list of which ones are important, generates drafts for this, saves them in the drafts folder. And another agent probably to just clean up, add this to the archive or delete all this and then delete the junk also as well. So that way there's more memory left. So those are kind of how I usually start with those. And then once I've kind of had that idea, start building it. I put it out there. I use ChatGPT as well to kind of ideate on like just the prompting itself of the agent themselves.
Right.
Okay, I figured out these are the agents I need. How can I best describe what this agent does and how it's supposed to solve the problem as a task? So sometimes I might define it, but I might just get lost in my mind trying to put the right words. So I just use these LLMs already kind of help me. So long as I just tell it what I want, I fine tune it to the point where I'm like, this prompt looks good, very concise, to the point. And that's something also that at the end of it, or when I'm still building it, it will change a lot, the prompting. Because sometimes a certain prompt does better than the other one. So that's another thing that I keep tuning all the way until it works better. Then once it's good and I figure out, okay, this works great, I run it through my inbox and figure out, okay, it works.
Right.
I tested several times with different numbers, just kind of trying to find edge cases until I figure out, okay, this works great. Now I'm ready to record it. But usually before that, I kind of generate a really nice README, commit everything to GitHub, and then I record the video. The video part is where, for me, I don't have much time. I have 2 kids. Very busy. Okay. Yeah, and then I have a full-time job. So usually I try to find some time, and that's why for me, my process for recording is very different. So I use some of the AI tools really online. I use some recording software, either Tela, just name dropping them here because I use them a lot. Yep. Tela or Vid.io. I use them as well. Right. So it just allows me to record my screen and myself, and I can switch between my screen and just individually really fast. So I record in sequences, and I usually do one shot. I don't script anything. That's another cool thing. Wow. Because scripting really for me, I figure out it kind of alienates me from my audience. Because I figure out what my audience like. My audience love just raw. I like to think of it as I'm at a conference, I'm talking to another developer, I'm explaining a concept. That's how I want it to sound. Oh, that's cool. And that's the concept. That's how I like consuming. And I figured out, okay, I could just do the same for the other person watching this. I just wanted to really break it down and just talk like I'm talking to somebody else.
Yeah. That's so interesting. Yeah, I do my demos completely differently. I do all the visual first.
Oh, nice. Wow.
Piece it together. That's easy. Yeah. And then I lay down an audio track, and I sometimes do it line by line.
Wow.
Because I don't know what I want to say exactly until I'm doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so as I go through it, and then I actually learn in the process because I need to use the proper terminology, and I need to, describe things in a way that makes sense to me, hopefully, and everybody else. So I lay the audio track down completely separate, piece by piece.
Wow. How long does that take you? Because for me,
Uh,
it's,
I'm
yeah,
getting better at it. Initially, it took a long time, but a 10-minute demo, I can do it in a couple hours.
nice. Yeah, that's I think just kind of figuring out your sweet spot. For me, also it took a while recording and figuring out. I tried scripting, it just didn't work. It felt very natural and very cumbersome for me.
Yeah.
Um, so I figured out if I've already built the demo, I understand what each component does very well. So I'm
Yeah.
just going to talk over it, and I'm not coding live. So I'm just going to walk them through each of the code base, what each section does, and then at the end, of course, finish with that running through the entire workflow. And I run it live. I don't do re-record it. So
Right.
if I run into a problem, they can see it, and I can actually debug live when they're looking at it. So it's more like I think this also helps people figure out like it's always not that one shot it works. No, you'll run into errors, and I want them to see that as well.
Just an aside, I talked earlier today. I talked to someone from Neptune AI.
Mhm.
Do you know Sid?
I think I know of them, but not personally connected. Yes.
Okay. So it's basically a platform that allows you to build experiments around different types of models, like to run experiments at scale. It's a pretty cool platform. And
Nice.
he posts a lot of videos, and he said the best way to learn is to just build in public and make mistakes.
Yes. Yes, I agree with that. I agree.
Tell me about your journey from studying health science to building AI agents.
Oof, yeah, that's I took a quick L turn really in my career. So I was in the army for 7 years, U.S. Army to be precise. And while I was in, they assign you different jobs. First of all, you're a soldier, but then you need another kind of they call it military occupation specialty that you do beside being a soldier. And for me, I chose to be a medical lab specialist because before joining the army, I was a undergrad and I wanted to go to med school and be a doctor. And so I took all the bio courses. Just I think I had like 180 credits in just medical credits. So when I joined the army, I was like, okay, I want to do something within just the medical field. So med lab felt very natural. Joined there. They gave me the training for it for an entire year, more of like a 2 years crammed into 1 year. 6 months of theory, 6 months of practical, actually being at the hospital, drawing people's blood, testing it in the back, and doing all the cool stuff. And then did 3 years of just purely that, just working at a health facility. So I was every day waking up, drawing blood, testing in the back end, sending the doctors and back and forth. So the last 4 years of my service, I served at the Military Institute of Infectious Diseases here in Maryland. It's called USAMRIID. It's pretty popular for creating vaccines for Ebola, hemorrhagic fever, and doing really research on that frontier for protecting soldiers in a sense in the battlefield. And during that time, I worked in genomics, and we were dealing with a lot of genomic data there, and a lot of bioinformaticians. So I got interested because I worked on the wet lab side of the lab. So my job was kind of really do the sequencing and kind of, at the end of the day, there would be data. I would see these people walking around with thumb drives. They would plug it in one of the machines, take the data, take it back. So after a while, I was like, what do you guys do with the stuff you guys take back there? And they were like, yeah, you want to see? They took me to the back, opened their screens. I just saw a bunch of stuff, and I was like, this looks really cool. And at that point, I was like, okay, let me start learning this. So they gave me a book. I think it was like Python for Dummies, and started learning how to do that a little bit. Jumped on Code Academy, started self-teaching there. And 6 months before I got out of the army, started figuring out what's my game plan. I want to get out of the army now. It's been 7 years, but I don't want to go work in medical anymore. I want to do more like programming. So started reaching out to some companies, networking here and there, and most people were like, well, you just gotta start doing something, build projects. I was like, okay, I'm already building the projects, on the side, just really toy projects in this case. And then it got to the point where I was interviewing for internships, and they were like, well, you don't really have any structured kind of curriculum education behind you. So decided to enroll. MCIT had just opened not so long after that, and applied. Luckily got in, and that kind of helped me a lot in kind of learning, first of all, and also just kind of opportunities kind of opened up after that. And after that, went to Bloomberg, did data, became a data analyst there, and then became a data engineer. And then eventually, some of the companies, most of the stuff that I was building and putting it in public, actually, building and sharing in public LinkedIn. So I connected with a lot of folks. And eventually, Streamlit opened a role for like DevRel, associate DevRel. I applied for it. It really fit into my needs because I was already using Streamlit for most of my projects. I was doing data science, data engineering stuff, but then as a UI, I was using Streamlit to kind of showcase that to folks. So they were all kind of familiar about me at that point in my work. So it became really easy. Even the interview process was very simple and very fast. And then stayed there for about 2 years. I had already started playing with AI agents and I was already using CrewAI. I met up with the founder of CrewAI that way as well, and very organically. And I actually ended up interviewing him at the podcast when I was at Streamlit. So that kind of generated the entire kind of connection there. And when it was time to kind of move, it was really easy. The idea for me was really easy to kind of like, okay, with the next place I want to do is AI agents. So I reached out to him and it was more like, hey, I know you, let's get together. And then it was just done. And I was at the company.
Where did your interest in working in developer relations start? It started at Streamlit, but why was that attractive to you? Why was that type of role attractive?
Yeah, I think for me it was more of initially I just liked building and putting stuff out there, sharing with people. So it's more like education in a sense. Like I learned this new thing, I just want to share it. I just want to build stuff with it and actually share it. And I had a YouTube channel then too that I had just started, and I was posting a lot on LinkedIn, but it was mostly, hey, I built this cool thing. I showed the diagram. I shared the GitHub repo, and people were like, oh, this is really cool. And then it just kind of sparked more of like chats with people. And at that time, I didn't even know that was developer advocacy at all. I didn't know that was a thing. So when the role popped up and I saw the job description, I was like, this is exactly what I'm doing. Yeah. But people are getting paid for this for full-time role. I was like, okay, I'm in. And so it became really natural at that point to just kind of make that move.
Perfect fit.
Yes.
So you've had a diverse career, military service, data engineering, developer relations. How has that shaped your approach to tech and teamwork?
Ooh, yeah. I think specifically from the Army is just really the discipline and just kind of grinding at it. I think that's something that I got from the Army, just really just going hard at it. And then I think from the corporate side of things is really accountability, making sure things are done. You assign something or just not even assigned, identifying things that need to be done and just going ahead and doing it. So kind of owning it. So agency in a sense. So that's one thing that I've learned a lot, even with all these different roles. And I think when it comes down to even right now, AI agents, right? Being a data engineer is for me, very similar to AI agent orchestration at this point, because with data engineering, you're orchestrating data from source to the sink, doing the ETL process. It's really similar to me when I think about agents. You start with the agent that does something in the beginning, then it just passes the input to the next agent, or they run sequentially or parallel. It's kind of still the same thing. For me, it just feels like ETL. It's just you're really orchestrating a process, and that still feels very data engineering aspect of it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Makes sense. Yeah. What advice would you give to someone looking to break into developer relations or work in emerging areas like multi-agent systems?
Yeah, I think the biggest one I would say is just build in public, and there you go. Yeah, and just put it out there. I think the biggest blocker for most people is themselves, because they're like, well, somebody's probably doing already this and they did it better than I did. But then it's like, sure, there's probably 1,000 videos out there on intro to Python. But at the end of the day, there's somebody that will understand the way you present it better than they understand the other ones. So just put it out there, and it doesn't hurt. I mean, the big thing is really we judge ourselves so much.
Right.
And I think if you just get over that, it's really easy. Just put it out there. First of all, people don't really critique you the way you think they will. I think you individually you critique yourself so much more than other people will do. Yeah. So the best thing for me, I would think, is start building these projects, and you can there's a ton of ideas out there. LLMs can help you now with ideating with some of these ideas, but I think come up with these ideas, build them, put them out there, or even if you've been building for a while, you don't even have to think about new ones. Go back to your repos, look at some of the stuff you've built out there before. Polish those, have a UI to it, put it out there. That's already valuable. And I think that is just a repository of information that you can put out there to make you visible. So I think with developer advocacy is visibility. Like be visible, do stuff, put it out there, build a brand that way. But in that process also, you end up learning a lot and getting a lot of feedback, because otherwise you're just building in a silo. And attending events is another big thing that's a lot of people underrated. So go to events, connect with people, ask for coffee chats. I think those are like very high value to your career.
Are there any specific education resources, courses, or communities you'd recommend for someone just getting started in this space?
Yes, I highly recommend deep learning courses from Andrew Yang. They're very quality, and I think he's assembled all the primitives to kind of build agentic or AI in general, really. So if you look at some of the courses on there, like CrewAI has a course on there. There's MongoDB, they have a course on there as well. So you can see, he's already integrating memory, agentic processes, tools as well. So if you go there, sign up, I think it's free for the most part. There's a lot of courses there, a lot of valuable courses taught by mostly the founders of those products themselves. So I can't think of any other place to get more up-to-date data than there. One other underrated place is just being on X or Twitter in a sense, because I feel, from my opinion, I feel like LinkedIn is very polished, which is good. It's always, products that are really matured a little bit more. But if you want to be at the tipping or the cutting edge of things when they just get released, I'd say X has the more of like the heartbeat when things come out. People are discussing it, and not X in general. There's X or tech Twitter in a sense. So if you kind of curate your feed to those people that actually post those type of things, then you'll get more up-to-date news in that aspect there. Another resource is YouTube. It's a massive amount of information out there. Yeah. People are ready to build demos. People are already kind of tinkered with these technologies. You can go there, absorb it, and it will give you more ideas to build what you want to build as well.
Where do you see multi-agent systems going in the next few years?
Oof, that's a big one. For me, as much as it's really hard to predict the future, and I've tried doing that over the past 6 months, I've been proven almost wrong in each one of them. And I love that because that means it's growing faster than I expected.
Right.
But I think where I see it going essentially is a point where kind of humans become more, the technology kind of, the agents become more of like they own the interactivity with the software. So right now, if you look at the humans, we do a lot of learning in terms of different software systems, right? I want to use LinkedIn. So I have to first understand how LinkedIn works. How do I post? How do I edit? How do I comment on somebody's post, for example? But with agents now, the agent will have to do that. We'll have to figure out that for us. So there will be the middle layer. So all I have to do is really, using natural language, explain to the agent what I want done, and they go do that for me. So I think that's where I see most of this going. And I think with MCP, for example, if maybe most people are not familiar with MCP, it's called Model Context Protocol. So right now, agents use tools to do specific things. Like for that simple example of posting on LinkedIn, for example, you can have an agent that uses maybe a LinkedIn API, posts on your behalf. You can do that right now, but you have to create that function to do that. With MCP, that's kind of already, it's more like an abstraction for tools. So you don't have to build individual functions to kind of pass it to the tool, to the agent. It's already pre-built. So all you need to do is tell your agents, hey, this is the layer, go connect to my LinkedIn, here are the credentials, connect to it, post this for me. Yeah, so that's kind of the general gist of it. So think of it as this MCP layer will have basically connected to your Gmail, LinkedIn, anywhere that you need basically software that you interface with. It's already connected under this MCP layer. Now, with your agents, you can just tell the agent, go to my inbox, look at the 5 emails that came in today, summarize them, and maybe specifically look at the newsletters that maybe came in today. Find any interesting tidbits from those newsletters that they mentioned, and then pass it to another agent that kind of does specific research on that, maybe one topic that I'm really interested in. And then another agent generates like a LinkedIn post and then post it for me on my LinkedIn. And all that happens from you just passing in one simple instruction, and then the agent's going to orchestrate all that stuff. Yes. So that's where I see things going. And you could even send an email. It could create that LinkedIn post, create a Twitter post. So it's really open to imagination at this point. So I think that's where I see things going. And I think that will still require new design thinking in a sense, and to really make that intuitive for most people and mainstream, and also trustworthy. So I think security is going to be a big aspect there, because if we're logging into different systems and agents are logging into different systems to perform specific functions, there's going to be vulnerability that's going to happen there. But I think just looking at how that is shaping up to be, it's just wild. Yeah.
Is the idea that you're basically orchestrating agents using prompts?
Yes, essentially under the hood, you're using prompts because I think if you look at it as the agent's kind of like the body, and then the brain is the LLM. So the LLM still needs some prompting. So for each of those agents, the LLM is a brain. So it still needs a prompt to come from that agent to actually accomplish that task. But I think the LLM does the thinking, the kind of like the processing stuff. But for it to take some actions, it needs to connect to a tool like LinkedIn. Yeah. So I think that's kind of like the gist there. So as you think about it, as the LLM layer kind of gets better over time, because now we've, the past few years we've gone from just very rudimentary LLMs to now we have like very good at, chain of thought reasoning. The reasoning has really become much better. So as the LLM layer kind of gets better, you can expect the agents to get even much, much smarter in a sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Any upcoming projects or ideas you're working on that you are particularly excited about?
Yeah, so there's so many of them. I think for work, there's a lot of, we have events coming up. We have our own AI Agent Summit in New York. So I'm really excited to meet a lot of folks there, and that's happening next week. Another one, my personal project that I'm really interested in, I've been going back to pain points, right? So one thing that I realized is every time I'm in the shower, I know it's going to sound strange, but every time I'm in the shower, I get these really nice ideas when I'm showering. For some reason, it's just become my idea place.
Yeah.
But one thing I've been noticing over the years is like, I just wash them down the drain when I walk off the shower because after coming back out, I don't remember most of it.
Wow.
Because at that point, other thought processes have come in. Maybe my kids are running around, I'm talking to them, or I talk to my wife, and those ideas fade off. But when I was in the shower, it was pretty crystal clear what I wanted, and it felt like, wow, if I could do this and that, this is really awesome. So when I walk off the shower, I'm like, wait, I had a good idea, but I don't remember most of it. So yeah, so one thing that I'm kind of trying to build a personal project here is I'm going to buy a bunch of Raspberry Pis. I'm going to build more of like my personal Alexa or my personal Siri, essentially, that I'm going to put it in the shower and put it in a case where it's like waterproof. So every time I'm in the shower, I want to give it a wake word, maybe like, hey, I'm just going to give it a random name. Hey, I have this idea, and just basically just talk to it. And it's going to capture my audio. And I want to, using LLMs in the back end, like something like Whisper, transcribe that, save that to a database. And once you save that, maybe add agents on that, on top of that, to kind of like look at that idea. I want to save the actual, my actual transcription first. So that way I have that original transcription. So if I want to do something else down the road, that's cool. But I want that to trigger agents that once that transcript is loaded to a database, I want to trigger agents on the other end to consume what I just said, which is very raw, structure it, maybe add on to it other ideas or critique that idea. Give me up, maybe I have another agent for critiquing, another agent for like expanding on that idea. Another agent, if it's something that needs to be built, I have another agent build actually a prototype of that example. And actually another one that just kind of sends it to my inbox or just does something on top of that. I haven't thought that far, but I wanted to just capture, refine it, get it ready for me.
And you want it done by the time you get out of the shower.
Exactly.
Waiting for you.
Yeah, that's not too much to ask, right? Just ready. So that's one of the ideas that I'm working on right now. It seems very trivial, but it kind of helped me learn, and I like those type of ideas personally.
I just realized I had a question that was, if you could build an agent to automate one part of your day, what would it be?
There you go. That's the one that I just double shot. I think that's the one that at the moment that I'm more obsessed, because I've been noticing that a lot. I've been telling my wife. So sometimes if my wife is walking around when I'm taking a shower, I'm like, hey, hold up. Can you save this idea? Basically, I'm using her as my database. I'm like, hey, I have this idea. I just want to tell this to you. It's going to take a minute. And please remember it for me, because when I walk out of this shower, I'm not going to remember most of it. I'll have other thoughts kind of to corrupt that idea.
Yeah.
So at least I want to replace her a little bit there with just the thinking part and saving that idea.
What does maintaining balance look like for you while working in such a high energy environment? Plus, you have kids, you have all these things going on. How do you manage work-life balance, Tony?
Oof, it's rough. I'm not gonna lie.
I know.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. It's not easy. There's some sacrifice, but I think also for me it helps a lot having a really good partner and a very strong partner to help me out and also understand things very well. And I think having systems around specific things is very important. So I have a system where at 5 I'm logged out. I'm out. That's my kids' time. I go spend a lot of time with them as much as I can.
Oh wow!
And once they go to bed, also that's another time I give to my wife as well. But then at some point, most people know that most of my video tutorials are recorded around 1 to 2 in the morning, which is kind of like the time I have to actually concentrate. Everything is quiet everywhere. I know everybody's taken care of, and I record it, and then the next day I do the editing and post it. Usually doesn't take me that long, but I think setting those systems in place have helped me a lot. And weekends, I usually don't look up anything. I'm offline, just spending the time with kids, maybe going somewhere. So setting those rigid kind of patterns has helped me a lot. And it also helps everybody, especially my wife, be happy at the end of the day, knowing that, hey, you're not just kind of like sinking yourself into work and kind of like we are just kind of an afterthought in that sense.
Yeah. Wow, that sounds very intentional. The fact that you're so good about that. 5 o'clock, turn off. You're off for the weekends. Yeah, I struggle with that. Sometimes I'm great at it, and sometimes I'm just horrible. Like,
I mean, yeah.
I'll work, I'll lose track of time, and it'll be like 9 o'clock. I've been sitting at my desk since 9 a.m. Like, it's just bad. And I got kids running around me too. It's just,
Yeah.
I just,
It's
that is a struggle. That is a struggle.
it is. It is. I think it's one of those underappreciated things, but as parents, I think it's like it amplifies that even more. I think for me, it's been, I mean, even the weekends, I say I'm logged off offline, but during the day when they're asleep, like maybe they take a nap or there's a free time, I pop up my phone, I just check real quick, but
Yeah.
I don't usually post much. I don't really engage much. It's like just check and then go out. But I don't respond to emails, nothing specifically on weekends, unless like something is burning, of course. Somebody happens to call me, but
Right.
it's a tough balance, is this.
Yeah. Thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's
Super
been
interesting.
yeah, pretty fun chatting with you. A lot of we share a lot in common, and also just the topics right now is very interesting.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. I appreciate it as well.
All right. Good to see you.
All right, good seeing you.
Bye.